Good morning to all of you out there. I'm Cito Beltran. Welcome to the program Agenda here on Signal TV, channels 8 and 250 for high definition, as well as on facebook.com/OneNewsPH and YouTube. Just punch in OneNewsPH. Okay, welcome po sa programa sa mga nanonood sa mga probinsya. Diyan po mula sa Zamboanga, yung mga kaibigan natin sa Zamboanga, and then of course going up north to Apari. Welcome to the program. And for today, February 18, 2021, Thursday, our guests will include Dr. Drew Camposano, COVID-19 Committee Head, Pediatric Infectious Diseases Society of the Philippines. And you might say, Sito, COVID na naman. Hindi po. Kasi meron na pong announcement, yung gobyerno, IATF, let the younger, yung mga teenager, let the teenagers out for non-essential activities, gimmick. Ika. Hindi naman gimmick, like, kasi wala na masyado magigimikan ng lugar, but to go out of their homes. And let's find out what the health experts have to say about this. And then we will go to former Finance Secretary Roberto de Ocampo. Sir Bobby de Ocampo will give us his insights, I hope, regarding the economy. Ano ba talaga? Kasi may mga nagsasabing unahin muna yung bakuna, and some are saying let's let the children out and let more people out so that there will be more business. I mean, when you think about it, is this just about activities of people going to malls and shopping? I mean, when you talk economy, there is a big picture, a bigger picture. It involves different industries, exports, imports, manufacturing, etc., etc. Parang, paano nangyari ng ekonomiya natin batay sa paglabas ng bata at matanda? Okay, pero hindi po ako expert dyan. I will let Sir Bobby de Ocampo give us the lecture on this matter. And of course, speaking of lectures, we will speak to Economist lecturer, University of Asia and the Pacific, our friend Sir Ronilo Balbieran. He's the one who manages to bring things down to reality. Kung si Sir Bobby yung talagang high-level economics and language, si Ronnie Balbieran naman yung usapang kalsada. Let's go on with the program. We have a lot of guests. Let's go to the front page of the Philippine Star. The Health Department clarifies that determining the quarantine classification in an area depends on the readiness of the local government units. This after the National Economic and Development Authority, or NEDA, has recommended to place the entire country under Modified General Community Quarantine, or MGCQ. Ang issue nga po dito ng iba, sabi nga ng iba, hello, nagtatalo pa sila. Para na rin namang MGCQ sa buong Pilipinas, pwera na lang kung makulit o praning yung mayor nila. Okay. Next up, vaccines from Sinovac are expected to arrive on February 23. But this may still be up in the air as the Food and Drug Administration said that the company has yet to complete its required documents. Without these documents, Sinovac shots cannot be used or even brought to our shores. Tama po yan. Kumbaga doon sa mga panahon ng tatay ko, nung nag-i-import kami ng panabong, pag dumating yung manok dyan sa NAIA na walang papeles, o kaya kupit, kinukupit na lang ng mga tigaron dahil kasi kung walang papeles, they will destroy it. Ayan, same thing with Sinovac. Okay, in other news, 2,000 more live hogs from Mindanao arrived here in Metro Manila as the government looks to flood the region with pork supply and thus bring down the prices. Congratulations po, or let's just say thank you. Thank you to Secretary William Dar for his gallant efforts, his valiant efforts. Pero alam niyo po, sa takaw ng mga tiga-Luzon sa baboy. Sorry, pare-pareho naman tayo takaw, di ba? Ako, matakaw ako sa chicharong bulaklak. Lahi kami ng salbabida. Pero alam niyo po, 4,000 heads a day, wala. Doon lang sa mga nagfo-food processing, mga gumagawa ng mga langgunisa, sausage, hotdog, etc. Ubus ka agad. Kanya nga nagtataka si Secretary Dar, ano pinagsasabi nilang may shortage pa rin? Paano pati doon sa palengke, kumukuha na yung mga iba eh. Okay. Meanwhile, detained Senator Laila De Lima has been cleared in one of 3 drug-related charges filed against her due to lack of evidence. Ito na nga po yung sinasabi natin eh. Kailan ba nagkaroon ng evidence? May pruweba ba talaga? Kasi yun kinulong lang. For most Filipinos, kinulong lang siya. Hindi naman siya nabaybas, hindi naman napakita yung talagang may mga testimony. And here's the irony. Those people who testified against her, mukhang they have been committed to the pearly gates kasi na-COVID while in incarceration. Okay. And last but not the least, the first storm of the year, kauna-unahang bagyo, Tropical Depression Auring. Naku, kakatakot yung mga pangalan na yan. Auring has entered the Philippine area of responsibility. Pag-asa warned residents of the Visayas and some parts of Mindanao against possible heavy rains and gusty winds. So, ayan na po. Okay, so let's move on to our main program, the interview part of agenda. First on agenda will be, ano ba talaga ang dapat? Should we let the teenagers out? Bless the beast and the children. Ayan, let's bring in COVID-19 Committee Head, Pediatric Infectious Diseases, Society of the Philippines, Dr. Drew Camposano. Dr. Drew, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning po, Sir Cito. Good morning.
Okay, very interesting yung family name mo kasi doon sa amin sa Nueva sa parte ng tatay ko sa Nueva Ecija, yung Camposano.
Opo.
Diba?
Napagkakamalan nga din yan.
Okay. Anyway, tiga saan ba yung mga Camposano?
Taga Iloilo po ako. Ako pa dito ngayon sa based.
Okay. Well, good to know that you are doing fine there in Iloilo, and greetings to our Ilonggo viewers. Dr. Drew, question, you already heard, you are aware of the policy of the IATF or decision of the IATF to let the kids, 17 to 19 ba yun? Hindi ko na matandaan yung age bracket, palayain na raw. Palayain na yung mga kabataan, mga teenager. What do you have to say about this?
Yung stand po ng aming society, ng Philippine Pediatric Society at saka ng Pediatric Infectious Disease Society of the Philippines, pareho pa rin po. Same lang po siya dun sa tulad nung sinabi nila nung December at saka nitong January, may plano sila. Tapos ngayon, meron na naman silang proposal. Pero ang aming pong stand is pareho din po tulad nung dati na parang for now po, hindi po muna kami nag-a-advise na hayaan yung mga batang lumabas. Especially yung cover ng aming mga pediatricians, yung less than 18 years old. Kasi po ang hindi paglabas ng bahay, form po yun ng physical distancing, ng social distancing. So as prevention po yun ng COVID, mas mainam po siguro na wag muna natin silang payagang lumabas as of now.
Okay, I respect that professional assessment of pediatricians in the Philippines. The question is, ano ang kapalit? What is the price we pay for this option? Because may mga nagsasabi na sa aking magulang that there are some kids in that age bracket. Alam mo naman, yan yung mga malilikot, mainit, mataas ang hormones, no? Medyo naapektuhan na yung mental health. And there is a high distrust for authority. They are now challenging the sanity of our decision-making abilities. And they are physically deteriorating because I don't care what any doctor will say, but you cannot deny the fact that when kids are contained in a small space during their maximum growth years, baka bumalik na naman tayo sa bansa na puno ng barangay 411.
Tama po yan. Actually po, kahit po sa ibang mga bansa, even though wala po tayong data talaga dito sa Philippines, yung mga sa ibang countries po naman din, yung mga research, nare-recognize po nila yun, especially sa ganyan katagal, tapos alam nating bata sila, they need interaction with other children, other people. May mga bad effects po talaga yung pag-stay nila sa bahay for a very long time already. Kaya nga rin po siguro, I think what is important to note is that, yun nga, alam natin napakatagal na ng ating lockdown. So dapat gawa na po talaga ng paraan para bumaba yung mga cases, para doon na po tayo, once bumaba na po yung mga cases, let's start talking about letting the children out, opening the schools, kasi yun po yung mga importante for the children.
Mhm. Now, what is the suggestion of your organization or your associates in the field?
Ang una po siguro talaga, before we talk about letting children out, pababaan po natin yung cases natin. Para po, kasi po pag mataas pa rin po yung cases, tapos dadagdagan natin yung mga taong lumalabas, di lalo po siyang tataas yung mga kaso sa atin. So better po siguro na pababaan natin yung transmission natin, pababaan natin yung rates natin, and then after that, pag mababa na po siya, we can start talking about letting the children out, opening the schools.
Okay, then, but alam mo, Doc Drew, and I'm not being sarcastic, no? I'm being really honest, no? Parang sinabi mo na rin na intayin na lang natin bumait lahat ng tao sa gobyerno at politiko. I'm sorry, but wait for the cases to go down. That's impossible. Even under the best of intentions, physically speaking, logistically speaking, that's impossible in a third world setting as ours. And in NCR alone, where the congestion level is on the extreme. Sabi nga nila, most congested, most polluted, etc. Mangyayari pa ba yun? Baka mamaya naghihintay tayo ng wala.
Well, yan po ang challenge. Kasi siyempre din po sa amin po, on our side, ang primary concern siyempre namin is to prevent infection and to prevent the morbidity and mortality kung magkaroon ka ng COVID.
But,
So
but,
parang,
but isn't that a sad statement, Dr. Drew, of our society, and not just pediatricians, of our society and our leadership, that we have no confidence in the ability, wala tayong tiwala sa kakayanan ng mga Pilipino, ng mga bata at ng mga magulang, parents and young adults to look after themselves, to obey safeguards. Kasi ilang beses na rin pinuri yung mga Pilipino na hindi tayo masyadong naglagalag no nagkaroon ng quarantine based on Google Earth and mobility tracking. Parang I just feel that we're presuming that Filipinos can't take care of themselves.
I think well, if you look at the experience naman po in other countries, and even siguro sa atin sa Philippines, alam naman natin that even children, kaya po nilang magsuot ng mask pag nasa school sila, pag nakalabas sila, kaya naman nila, basta natuturuan siya ng mga magulang nila kung paano magsuot ng mask, paano magugas ng kamay, mga ganyan. Pero syempre, hindi lang din po kasi yun yung factor na kinoconsider natin. Aside from compliance to the minimum health protocol, syempre hindi rin po kasi yan nagiging zero risk kahit 100% of compliance mo sa protocol eh. May factor pa rin po yung environment, yung exposure mo sa labas. So kahit na even though as a person, as a family, you are compliant with your protocols, if you are exposed to an environment or to the community where there is an increased risk of transmission, hindi pa rin, tumataas pa rin po yung risk mo na maging na mahawaan ka. So parang if you look at it po siguro, it's not just on the confidence of the person, it's on the whole society approach in terms of lowering the risks of
Okay.
getting the virus.
Yeah, Dr. Drew, it is absolutely certain and factual na may COVID-19 at mahirap magkaroon ng COVID-19. But here's my observation of late. Karamihan sa mga kaibigan ko at mga anak nilang tinamaan ng COVID-19 asymptomatic. In fact, in the last 2 months, I have not heard of any of those I know personally landing in the hospital. Kumbaga, may sabi nga sa akin ng isang mayor, Cito, ang kaibahan kasi sa Pilipinas, dito, pwede ka nang i-medicate at mag-medicate at home. Hindi katulad sa ibang bansa, bawal bumili ng oxygen, bawal bumili ng ganitong prescription, hindi mo mabibili yung mga gamot na binibigay ng mga doktor sa Pilipinas. Now, what is the situation as far as kids are concerned? I mean, are they really, in terms of the population, are they more infectious, more susceptible, and are they affected worse than the adults?
Actually po, ang data natin sa Philippines at yung data din sa buong mundo, pareho dun po na ang mga bata, technically pag sabi natin bata, yung mga less than 18 years old po, globally and nationally, yung cases po nila, less than 10% lang ng kabuuan. So they are less affected talaga po compared to adults. In terms of susceptibility or yung sa kanila na pwede silang mahawaan, less likely din po sila actually compared sa mga matatanda na mahawaan. At
Okay.
yung capability naman nila na makahawa, hindi pa po clear yun. Doon po yung hindi pa clear na yung science doon kung less likely din ba silang na manghawa. Ongoing pa po yung studies doon, pero parang may iba po nagsasabi na parang less likely din sila actually manghawa. Pero yun lang din po, even though alam natin na less madami sila, less infectious, less ability to be infected, vulnerable po sila eh. Bata po kasi sila. Especially po yung mga 0 to 4, yung mga nagkaka-COVID na 0 to 4 years old, mataas po ang mortality nila. Tapos
Okay.
yung mga pag in terms of pediatric population po, 0 to 4 affected talaga sila. Yung pinaka mild yung affected, actually yung mga 5 years old to 10 years old. Tapos yung habang tumatanda na sila, naging 10, teenagers na sila, tumataas na rin yung risk nila na magka-infection, magka-malalang sakit, na manghawa din. Kasi habang tumatanda sila, nagiging parang matanda na rin yung kanilang risk. So yun po.
Kasi ang pinupunto ko dito, Dr. Drew, no? And I'm trying to follow your lead eh. Now let's go to the data and the science. So the young adults or mga teenagers are only 10% of the total global cases. Maliit lang sila, number one. Number two, habang bata, mas malakas yung kanilang resistensya or ability to fight off infections, unlike the adults. So you have in the Philippines, 70% of the population are young adults or children, and yet they only represent 10% of the cases at most. And ito ba dahil sa physiology ng mga bata or dahil din kasi nababantayan sila ng magulang at naaalagaan sila ng lipunan? Kasi parang ang argument kasi, and I'm sorry Dr. Drew, no, I have to represent everybody's opinion eh. Kanya nga maraming naasar sa akin, masyado raw ako maraming alam. Hindi po ako maraming alam, marami lang ako nadidinig, kailangan ko ulitin para ko loro. Okay, in any case, people are saying, kaya naman namin alagaan yung anak namin, hindi naman namin ipapahanamak yung anak namin, and yung mga bata naman, alam nila na meron talagang COVID. But parang ang worry nila is, we don't want to be jail guards. We want to be parents.
Actually po kasi kaya po sila less affected talaga. May physiologic po 'yon na parang ang theory po is less susceptible talaga yung mga, especially yung mga younger children, yung mga 5 to 10. Tapos also po less ang exposure nila. Sa mga pag-aaral po kasi sa mga ibang countries, ang mga bata po kasi sa sila ang exposure nila usually sa school. So yung siguro especially in the Philippine setting, in the context na sarado naman yung mga school, saan pupunta yung mga bata pag lumabas sila? Mag-stimulate ng economy? Or would it be better na we allow them to go out because we want them to go to school so that they can learn and also para rin sa mental health nila. Pero ngayon po kasi with the context na sarado pa yung schools natin, saan pupunta yung mga bata pag lumabas sila?
Actually, tama yung point mo, Dr. Drew. Ewan ko, dyan sa Iloilo, no? Para ako maging Ilonggo na bigla. Okay, sa Iloilo, I don't know what the situation is. Kasi medyo modern na, lalo na sa city, ano? Very, very modern na yung Iloilo City. But you know, I go out into the provinces, ang dami ko nakikitang bata sa kalsada sa lansangan. Kasi doon wala namang malls doon
Mm.
lang sila kalsada, takbuhan sila, naglalakad sa sa kalye. So I'm just wondering, is this a Metro Manila phenomenon na nagiging issue sa atin yung paglabas ng mga bata at yung kalagayan ng bata? Or is it because NCR has a lot of the cases?
Una po siguro NCR has a lot of cases. And also po, yung data po kasi natin, parang hindi natin siya na-individualize na yung risk, actually sa totoo lang, ang risk kung nasa isang isla ka, na wala namang COVID cases for a very long time, yung risk mo to get COVID, syempre, is not the same as when you are in Metro Manila in a congested neighborhood with a lot of cases around you. So iba po siya. So siguro, as a step forward na rin, na dapat mayroon tayong data per locality para makagawa tayo ng
Mm.
advice per locality din so that we
Mm.
can move
Would would
forward.
would you or the society support a program where in areas that are not adversely affected by COVID-19, where the cases are minimal or non-existent, that we allow the children out, whether they go to the playground or whether they go to school? Kasi meron din isang school of thought, di ba? Ikaw yung doktor, turuan mo na lang ako, sir. May isang school of thought na pag nilagay mo lang sa loob ng bahay yung bata at hindi siya na-expose to natural bacteria, etc., hindi lalakas ang resistensya niyan at lalaki yan na magiging sakitin.
Meron po talagang gano'n. Actually, kaya din po actually na yung mga bata ngayon less affected sila dahil din sa immune system nila yun, mas
Mm.
resilient sila. Pero ayun nga po, siguro din, dahil na-bring up niyo rin po yan, I think the society is already trying to work with other agencies na parang, especially in areas na mababa na yung transmission,
Mm.
we can support DepEd in the opening of schools, of face-to-face classes.
Yeah.
Pero syempre with mitigating factors, still with the minimum health protocols.
Mhm.
Kasi
Okay,
po
now,
kailangan din po talaga nilang mag-school.
okay, is the society being consulted regarding these movements? Kasi parang nagtataka ako dati mag-uusap muna yung mayors and MMDA and then they will make a suggestion to IATF and then ready, set, go. This month, parang kanya-kanyang republika ang nadidinig ko at kanya-kanyang suporta at oposisyon na me as a citizen and as a media person, parang, sandali, sino ba papakinggan ko dito sa mga taon to? Sabi, palabasin. Sabi, wag palabasin.
Actually po, yun din po siguro yung something we can improve on, na parang yung IATF maglalabas ng statement, tapos kami naman as a society magre-react na lang kami,
Mm.
yung parang tulad nun sa paglabas ng mga bata. Tapos po, unfortunately, the announcements do not come from the Department of Health. Sometimes it's from the economic side, although we recognize the importance of the economy. Sana po mag-usap muna sila, yung DOH at saka yung economics people, para naman hindi lang po isa yung nagsasabi ng ganyan-ganyan, para mas integrated yung approach natin towards infection control, towards relaxing the restrictions, and towards improving the economy. As for the society po, we are talking with other agencies din po, and I think meron naman rin pong process ongoing, especially in terms of resuming the face-to-face classes po.
Okay, now what about COVID cases and children? Sa society ba ninyo, I'm sure you guys are monitoring, sharing information among members. What is the state of COVID-19 infections among children in the Philippines?
So yun po, less than 10% lang naman po sila ng kaso, pero meron po tayong mga nagkakaroon talaga ng severe na cases, especially po yung mga 0 to 4 years old. Marami po talaga ang medyo mataas pa ang proportion sa kanila na pag nagka-COVID sila, namamatay po sila. Tapos
Okay.
yung mga teenagers, 10 and as they grow older, sila po yung nagkakaroon ng, kung narinig niyo na po yun, yung parang Kawasaki disease, yung
Yeah.
multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children. Sila
Mm.
din po yung nagkakaroon ng gano'n na severe po yun na manifestation, na mababa yung BP, nagkaka-rashes, naapektuhan yung puso, yung heart, yung brain, yung tiyan nila, mga gano'n po.
Okay. Well, I'm going to have to end it at that and monitor na lang namin, Dr. Drew, kung ano ang mangyayari dito sa diskurso na ito. Kung makakalabas ba, palalabasin ba, palalayain ba natin ang mga teenager for the benefit of the economy. Sabi ko nga bagay, makakaliwa, makakanan, talo eh. Palabasin mo yung mga 65 and above, sasabihin naman ng mga geriatric practitioners. Wag, susceptible sila. Ay, ewan. Okay, thank you, Dr. Drew, and
Thank you, sir.
God bless you, sir.
Thank you po.
Okay, that's Dr. Drew Camposano. Nandun po siya sa Iloilo. Welcome good morning sa inyong mga tiga Iloilo and mga kaibigan ko dyan, sila Mark Hison, sila Pastor Rafi, and everyone else. Yung kaninang sinasabi ko kasi na nagkakaroon ng resistensya. Nung ako po ay nakatira sa Busuanga, Coron, Palawan area, tumira tayo dyan on and off. Actually, I had a base there for 7 years. And before I got into media, ang dami ko po nakikita mga bata, botsyog, ang lulusog, sunog na sunog, parang kape, kulay kape yung balat, laging nakangiti, ang dudungis, uhugin. Pero alam nyo, ang lalakas ng katawan, naglalakad, nakatapak sa putik. Okay? And it is because they grew up in an environment and they were exposed. Eh, ang nakakatakot po, yung mga anak natin na nakakulong na lang sa, di bali sana kung malawak yung kwarto, eh kung makitid at maliit at mababa, patay tayo dyan. Okay, we'll go for a quick break, and when we come back, let's consult with the expert, the experienced economist and former finance secretary Bobby Del Rosario here. Bobby Del Rosario, Bobby De Ocampo, sorry sir, Bobby De Ocampo here on Agenda. Welcome back to the program Agenda, and please, I apologize for mixing up names. Yan po ang problema pag hindi ko pa naiinom o natitikman yung aking Batangas Barako coffee na tawag ko Dreg coffee kasi ginagawa ko, binubrew ko sa gabi, iniinom ko sa umaga. Okay, let's bring in our next lecturer for the morning. we have with us former Finance Secretary and Money Matters expert, none other than former Secretary Roberto Bobby de Ocampo this morning. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Cito. Good to see you again. Huh? Long time no see.
Yeah, I am so sorry, but I don't make it a habit of disturbing very busy people like you, especially when you're running banks and the likes. But how are you health wise, sir?
Pretty healthy. I haven't even caught a common cold since the start of the pandemic. I
Yeah.
decided that my best antidote to the virus is making myself healthier.
Mm-hmm.
So I expose myself to sunshine and fresh air to the extent that I can. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, I follow health protocols, and I have even altered my diet to get rid of sugar and excess carbs and fats and stuff like this. And I actually intensified my exercise routine. So I'm healthy.
It's funny how we
You
all
look
find
healthy too.
yeah, it's funny how we all find religion in terms of health when we get older, don't we?
Of course, yes, of course. But we should do it all the time, and especially during this time of pandemic.
Okay, in any case, sorry to be bothering you this time of the day, but we need expert opinion. Ika nga, we need a friend of the court to share their expert opinion. The National Economic Development Authority, or NEDA, is pushing for the entire country to be placed under modified GCQ, primarily as impetus for economic growth. Now, some people are pushing, on the other hand, for the release or the freedom for minors to go out so that they can also help the economy. And it's just kind of surprising or bewildering to why our economy is based on a policy of quarantine or the age group being let out. What are your views on this, Mr. Secretary?
Cito, among the many hats that I wear, I'm also the chairman of something called the Foundation for Economic Freedom, which
Mhm.
is an aggregation of just about all the top economists of the country. And if you read the papers today, we probably would have released a statement in support of the NEDA's position.
Mhm.
And that particular statement is supported by other major business groups as well.
Mhm.
And the reason we are supporting this is because, as you know, the entire approach to the pandemic since the start last year has to be a balancing act between the health imperatives and the economic ones.
Mhm.
Now, at the start of the pandemic, the balance had to tip towards the health imperatives because, for one thing, no one in the world knew exactly how to deal with a virus that was entirely new.
Mhm.
So, a general lockdown was almost worldwide because nobody knew what to do with it. The virus was new, and there was fear of spread and contamination, and rates of deaths in cases were
Okay, go ahead. I think the secretary's service just hung there. Okay, so we will try to get back Secretary Bobby de Ocampo, former Finance Secretary Bobby de Ocampo. But just as a quick review for those of you who may not have caught it, Bobby de Ocampo is and his group of economists have supported the NEDA position for declaring the entire country under modified GCQ so that it would lead to more economic activity because while they respect the necessary health concerns or the global health concerns and protocols, they must also push for economic movement, or else there's going to be an even bigger problem in the long run. Now, ayan po yung mga situation yan, push-pull, no? Maganda rin po na ganito yung nangyari. Instead of us, jumping into the pool and making things more congested, manood lang po kayo, panoorin natin silang magdiskurso. Why? Because I, for one, know that in some places in the Philippines, the quarantine, the kind of quarantine that's being done, kunyari, itong isang lugar, isang bayan o probinsya, city or town is either placed in GCQ, MECQ, MGCQ, etc. I know of certain towns and cities where it is done intentionally by some people because it is politically or economically beneficial to their vested interest. In fact, meron nga, may intriga nga ngayon sa, lantaran na, sa sabong po. No? Hindi ako nagsasabong, ha? I just make that clear. I just love fighting cocks and chickens, but I don't go to the cockpits nor do I gamble. But I've been going around and I've been told by a number of people that some cities allow the sport and some cities don't. And it would seem that the cities where they don't allow it, or provinces where they don't allow it, the people who are part of the decision-making process are investors on a certain form of sabong which is online. So kumbaga, ayaw nilang magpunta yung mga sabongero sa lahat ng sabungan at pilitin sila pumunta online. I have nothing against online. Mind you, this online sabong has been very good for farm owners because the demand has been greater. Pero ang iniiyak ng iba, lalo na yung mga nasa Batangas, sinasabi sa akin, Kuyang, pupunta pa kami sa Laguna para lang magsabong. So there's a manipulation. Now anyway, let's bring back Sir Bobby. Sorry for the delay. I didn't notice you were back already. Sir Bobby.
Yes, I'm sorry, but at this time of day, somehow my Wi-Fi messes up. But I hope you caught part of what I said. That
Yes.
it's a balancing act.
Yeah.
At the start, it had to tip over towards health.
Okay, now
because of course it was something new. But as the months went by, what we had to watch out for were three measures. One is cases, the second is recoveries, and the third is deaths. At the same time that we were doing this, we had to come up with as many health measures as we can in order to be able to control this virus. Now, the reason you look at these three measures is because the entire effort on the health side, aside from, of course, keeping it from spreading wildly, is to bring the entire pandemic under control to the point where they say you flatten the curve.
yeah.
What does it mean? Each of these measures is tracked on a graph that is a curve, and it flattens only when the amount and the capacity of your health infrastructure is not overwhelmed by the number of cases that happens. At the start of the pandemic, we were unprepared because, of course, it was totally new and it was going on at very rapid numbers. So we had to do what we could to come up with very quick facilities, get as much of our health workers and frontliners out there as possible, and so forth and so on. Eventually, we got to the point where we began to have a better contact tracing. The public was more aware of the health protocols and were following them. We put out money for two reasons. The Bayanihan budgets were for two reasons. One was to be able to help those that were jobless and businesses that had closed down. And the other, of course, was to be able to build the necessary infrastructure so that the amount of infrastructure and capacity we have at the medical area would not be overwhelmed by the number of cases. Now, while all of this was happening, of course, the economy was shut down, and for the first time in almost modern history, the economics, which is of course ruled by the law of supply and demand, was no longer that way because both supply and demand had to be controlled. So you have businesses shut down, you have supply chains being curtailed, and the movement of goods and services and people was not there.
Yeah.
The sum total of an economy is called the GDP, or the gross domestic product, and it is the monetary value of all these exchanges of goods and services among businesses and people. The GDP of the Philippines at the end of 2019, in other words, close to the start of the pandemic, was in the vicinity of 20 trillion pesos, and it was growing at the rate of anywhere from 6 to 7%. We were in good shape. But once we had to shut down the economy, that growth started to take a dive. And at the end of 2020, the growth rate reversed, and instead of a growth that was positive, we ended up with a negative situation of 9%. Now, for every percent that the GDP goes down, that is worth 200 billion pesos. Okay? So 200 billion pesos over a 1 year period translates into a little over 1 trillion pesos. Now, no amount of a stimulus package or funds from the budget, which of course originate from our taxes or printing money, can be the equivalent of patching up a hole that is as big as 1 trillion pesos. Now we have reached the point, however, where there are a number of developments in the health field that allow our curve to finally be flattened. We have instituted a much more efficient way of contact tracing. And because of that, we can more precisely identify who are those that got the virus and who aren't, and therefore to be able to quarantine them quickly. And as a result, cases, of course, go up because the tracking is much better, but the recoveries are also better because you can catch the cases much earlier. And if the recoveries are better, the rate of death becomes lower. There will continue to be deaths, but right now what is happening is that the rate of recoveries has increased because we catch them early, and our infrastructure is much better now at handling cases. But also importantly, the rate of deaths has also been decreasing. There continue to be deaths, of course, but that happens in almost every disease. But for this particular pandemic, we finally found ourselves at the point where the rate of deaths are also decreasing. So just as a comparative figure, so that you don't be too pessimistic about the Philippine situation, for a population of over 100 million, we have had a total of approximately 11,000 deaths. Well, compare that to New York, where there are about 8 million people and 30,000 deaths, and that is a much more modern society. So, in spite of our more meager resources, we have done what we can to be able to finally put this under control. It has taken a year to do it, but you can see that even in more developed countries like New Zealand, every now and then some variant of the virus springs up, and then they have to lock down. But they lock down now on a focused basis, only where you end up spotting that there is a COVID case. You don't lock down the entire New Zealand. You don't lock down the entire economy.
Yeah, they just
So we are now at the point where the proposal is, since we have reached this curve flattening, and since vaccines are now about to come, there are at least 6 of them from the United States, UK, China, and Russia, and the first batch is expected to be here by March. You have the capability now to gradually open the economy, because what is happening is that 50% of the 500,000 small and medium enterprises of the Philippines shut down. The employment rate went from a single rate to a double digit. In other words, poverty and unemployment have spread. You even have the Makati Shangri-La shutting down. You have Philippine Airlines laying off thousands of its employees. You have Jollibee shutting down hundreds of its branches. I can go on and on.
Mm.
But there is no substitute for economic interaction. Certainly, you can't just keep throwing money at it because, as I said, you can only come up with so much taxation, and you don't want to be printing willy nilly, therefore, causing runaway inflation.
Okay, Secretary, I think you've made your point very clear. There is a very touchy question I have to ask because right now, at the rate things are going, the ones who are opposing the MGCQ idea or any attempt to liberalize the quarantine are local government officials, mayors and governors, etc. There is the suspicion. Well, I'll call it. I'll just claim it. No, I am suspicious of this because if this continues up to 2022, the election happens. People will become dependent on mayors and governors instead of their capacity to create, produce, and also on the national government. Is this a valid concern on my part? Parang baka mangyari, umasa na lang lahat sa mga mayor at sa mga gobernor eh.
You know, to some extent, we are not alone in this phenomenon. When I observe, when I observe what's going on in the United States, for example, some states are more liberal than the others,
Mhm.
and I'm not surprised that to some extent that is happening here because the signals have been mixed. Now, if we decide and uh, and uh, and lead from the top, which is of course the IATF and the president himself,
Mhm.
with a clear direction that we are going to gradually open up the economy, I think the majority of LGUs are going to toe the line.
Mhm.
Um, uh, uh, Prior to this, I think the problem is that we have had really many confusing signals, even from central authorities. So local governments either decided that they don't know what to follow, or they improvise on their own, or
Mhm.
or as you put it, take the opportunity of the occasion to be able to engage in other motives than straightforward ones.
Okay,
But I'm hoping, of course, that now that there seems to be a looming clear signal
yeah.
that the local governments will take this seriously, and the government should try its best to make the application of rules along the lines of all local governments to be as uniform as possible, so that the closure or the lockdown of any part of the country will be on a focused basis that is science based.
Okay, last question, Secretary. A well-known business leader, I think it was Jasa. I think I'm not so sure. One of the Zubel said, economic recovery won't take place until the last quarter of 2023. Some people were shocked. Some people got miffed. What's your reaction, or what's your assessment? When do you think our economic recovery will start?
Well, it depends what you mean by economic recovery. If you're looking at the kind of growth rate that we had at the end of 2019, it may take beyond 2021 to do that. Why? Because our growth rate at the end of 2019 was 6%. Our negative growth rate at the end of 2020 was minus 9. So you've got a gap of 3%. The present the present projection is for the 2021 economy to grow anywhere from 4 to 5%, but 5% will barely cover the gap of 9% that we are coming from. So I would say, if I want to be optimistic, that number one, I would define recovery as at least an increasing positive growth rate month on month. That has already been happening actually. For the last 3 months of last year, the rate of growth of the economy was positive, so that the average ended up to be minus 9%. If it continued to be negative, it might have been worse. Now, that trend will continue, however, gradually, if we gradually open up the economy. So, economic recovery will not be 100%, but it will be on a slope that leads upwards rather than downwards. Now, if you inject into that the prospect that vaccines will finally come here, the economy will open up gradually, more and more over time, then my projection would be that we will approach a fuller and better recovery within the first half of next year.
Okay, well, I'll have to end it at that, Secretary Bobby. Thank you for your very clear explanation and projections, and may you stay healthy, and please take care of yourself. Have a great day ahead of you.
Thank you, Cito. Nice to talk to you and good to see you again. Stay healthy too.
Okay, that's former Finance Secretary Roberto Bobby de Ocampo. We go for a quick break and then we go to our next and final interview here on Agenda. Okay, you're back here on Agenda. I was just scanning some of the stuff here. And reviewing what Secretary De Ocampo was saying, one thing that I have been pestering the DOH about is how many new hospitals have been built during 2020 and going on. Kasi alam niyo po, yung DOTR, DPWH, and the Duterte administration, everyone is talking about build, build, build. And they recently did the ribbon cutting on the extension of the 1331 runway ba dyan sa NAIA dahil pinahaba raw by 300 meters para mas maraming malalaking eroplano makakaland, etc. But do we need runways right now or do we need hospitals? In any case, let's go to our next interview. We have with us, I don't know kung professor na nga ba siya, pero pag-usapin natin, our friend Ronnie Balbieran, Economist Lecturer, University of Asia and the Pacific. Professor, good morning sa imo. Kamusta na ba, sir?
Good morning po. Good morning, Sir Cito.
Okay, I'm sure you must have watched our interview with Secretary Bobby de Ocampo, and I'm kind of wondering lang, no, kasi reading the news, you will hear people pushing for the release or letting teenagers go out, and then the economists or NEDA are saying declare MGCQ all over the country. And sabi ko nga kanina, on one hand, yung economy ba ng Metro Manila dependent on teenagers, na kailangang makalabas sila kung uumpisa yung ekonomiya. And then, ano ba kinaibahan ng MGCQ sa ngayon? Ewan ko, baka sa mga napupuntahan ko, parang wala nang QQ wala nang kyaw-kyaw, gawa na lang ng gawa. Prof, ano ba masasabi mo?
Sir, I think talagang dine-demonstrate nito na yung power of consumption of the young people is really needed for our economy. So we tried a lot of things, pero hindi talaga mag-recover yung economy natin. In yung last year, I think we are losing at around 5 billion per day, sir. So kung isama mo pa yung growth that might have been in 2020, na dapat mga nasa around 3 billion per day, yung growth natin na 6% per year. So mga 8 billion yun, sir, 8 billion per year, per day ang what we're losing. So and what's missing? It's the power of consumption or the ability to actually influence consumption by the young people. You know, when you
So
are
you
with
support.
babies, yes, when you are with babies, you are with kids and very young teenagers, those are big sources of consumption and influencers of consumption. Dito mo, pagkasama mo yung lola mo, pabili ka ng pabili. Pagkasama mo yung tita mo, tito mo. But now we are missing those influencers of consumption.
Okay, now next question, yung MGCQ declaration that the NEDA wants. How will that impact our economy? Kasi walang public confidence. May, 'di ba, may mga tourist spots na open na pero ayaw pa rin pumunta ng tao kasi masyado raw maraming requirements, masalimuot, etc. How will MGCQ affect our economy?
I think our family-based culture dito sa Pilipinas, sir, is the one dictating whether we will recover faster or not. So what I'm saying is that, sige, anong point na pupunta ka sa isang magandang tourist destination if you're not with your children? So so you want to be with your children. You want to eat in the restaurants with your children, to want to eat with your father, your mother, your grandfather, your grandmother. So you cannot do that. So ano nangyayari? Yung mga nagde-date lang, yung mga ano, so yun lang po ang nagpupunta at umiikot. But what's important, very important, what I have also absorbed from Secretary Ocampo, we need to let the movement of people, the movement of goods to flow with as fast as possible. So yun po yung pinaka-importante, let the movement of people and goods. So kasi kung wala po 'yon and wala po yung mga consumers, the right kind of consumers, we don't have the right mix of consumers and supply of goods and services that will actually drive the fast recovery of our economy.
Well, in that case, you're also obviously that you would also support yung sinabi ng isang governor kahapon na dapat yung mga provincial buses makalabas na rin. Parang nakakapagtaka dito gusto ng iba pa or palabasin yung mga bata tapos yung mga bus hindi pinapalabas. Parang sabi ko nga, ano ba ang mas importante, yung provincial buses o makalabas yung mga teenager?
Yes, sir. Walang pinagkaiba yan, sir, na nag-down yung construction natin, which is one of the biggest industries of our economy. So, pinakawalan mo ng July and October last year, but we don't have public transportation. So, paano pupunta sa mga project sites yung mga construction workers? So, we did not achieve that full recovery in the construction industry that we wanted. Though there was already recovery in the construction industry, but it would have been faster. So
okay, ito bang mga decision makers na ito nabibigyan ng mga lecturers ng katulad ng taong katulad mo? Kasi last night someone had talked to me about all of this. Sabi, totoo ba na nagsara na yung ganitong kumpanya, ganito? Sabi ko, look, here's the situation. Walang restaurant na bukas. May bukas, 30% lang ang pwede o 40%. So, bumagsak ng 60% yung mga demand ng lahat ng restaurant para sa manok, sa baboy. Kung bumagsak ang demand, lahat itong mga magpo-poultry at magbababoy, syempre, magbabawas din. Pag nagbawas sila, mabababa ang sales ng mga feed mills, ng mga veterinary products, babagsak yung demand for mga buses, trucks, etc. Parang, I just get the impression a lot of people who are making decisions don't understand the chain and relationship of one industry to another.
I wouldn't want to comment on that, but I think, sir, napakabigat ng dilemma ng life and livelihood.
Parang ako na lang talaga yata ang matapang magsabi ng katotohanan. Hindi, but that's
tama
true,
yung sinasabi niyo, sir, na for every intended yung action with intended consequence, there's a 3 to 4 times multiplier to that. That is unintended consequence. So if you're not able to really trace yung backward and forward linkages of our economy, yung sinabi niyo dikit-dikit 'yon. Pag nawala yung demand, Walang pumunta doon sa restaurant. Dikit-dikit yun all the way to the value chain ng farmers, worrying whether someone will buy his produce. No? So, diretso yun. So, mahirap po yung, and it's important, sabi nga ni Secretary de Ocampo, understandable in the beginning that we were scared, but now we know how to deal with it. Face mask, face shields, vitamin C, sunlight, etc. And so therefore we should be able to move faster into letting our people move around the country. Remember, nung 2019, all the way back before the pandemic, it was more than 100 million Filipinos touring our country. Domestic economy, domestic tourism was pushing everybody into consumption. So that's very important, at yun po yung nawala sa ating ekonomiya. At kailangan maibalik po natin yan sa lalong madaling panahon, that domestic consumption. And napakalaking part, yung missing nun, yung 15 pababa, napakalakas gumastos yun kasi hindi naman sila nag-worry kung kikita sila o hindi. Humihingi sa nanay at sa mga lola at tito. So, let them spend.
Okay. Well, Prof, thank you very much for your time. Na overtime na naman tayo ulit. So, sorry. Have a great day. God bless you, sir.
God bless, sir.
Okay, and I'm Cito Beltran, so apologizing for this overtime. May you all have a great day. See you later on. Tomorrow po, wala tayo kasi medyo may mga personal matters I need to address. And I'll see you next week. Have a great weekend this weekend, and God bless all of you.